Clash of the Champions 4, Seasons Beatings. This is the fourth Clash of Champions that I will be a review in the 4th of 1988, coming from Chattanooga, Tennessee, the U2C Arena. A lot of these matches are, it's 5 matches per Clash of Champions airing live on TBS, and they're quite long. In the first match alone, a tag team match is 27 minutes. In the timekeeper, the way he measured it, according to the online source of wrestling history, and there was a lot of wrestling history involving this match, a lot. The timekeeper counted down at like a minute left, but according to the show history on ProWrestlingHistory.com, it's 27 minutes, but the timekeeper said it came down to the last minute of the match. And this match was the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers versus Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert. It is the tournament final of the vacant U.S. Tag Team Championship. And the team of Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert are practically, in all practical sense, is a throw together team. They've probably been teaming maybe the last month or so, barely. Now, Eddie Gilbert is comes from the UWF purchase by Jim Crockett, and he's known as one of the most smartest, mindful wrestlers in wrestling history. Many have put him over as one of the greatest minds of finishes and booking, and he's a second generation wrestler. Personally, I've never been a huge fan of Eddie Gilbert. Not really. Maybe when I was watching him in the UWF episodes. But when in 1989 comes, he would be the result of how Ricky Steamboat would come into play in the National Wrestling Alliance in 1989. And Ron Simmons, a well-known Florida State football player, really put over. Yeah, he in the College Football Hall of Fame. And very briefly, I think he was in an NFL draft, but sometimes you don't make it, and you do a lot of college football. And he's well known from Florida State. He came out of the Championship Wrestling from Florida territory and worked his way up. And I think it's later 1989, he'd be teaming up with Butch Reed as the Masked Team of Doom. But this was for the vacant U.S. Tag Team Championship. This match was 27 minutes. It was a so-so tag team match, but a very long match. And the one thing that they kept working on, the Fantastics work on, apparently Eddie Gilbert had an injured arm, and and the way Jim Ross would put it over, his arm was padded, and he started turning black and blue. Was injured. I don't know where they get the story of his elbow was injured, and eventually in the end of the match, the Fantastics really work on Eddie Gilbert's elbow, and eventually, Ron Simmons all 4 men had worked in the match, but in the last some odd minutes, last quarter of the match, the Fantastics really worked on Eddie Gilbert's arm, and eventually the Fantastics would defeat Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert in the last minute. With somehow they're saying that Eddie Gilbert banged his elbow. As much as the Fantastics worked on Eddie Gilbert's elbow, his arm, really worked on it. Eventually, he banged his arm again. It was one point in the match that I think it was Tommy Rogers. He had Eddie Gilbert's arm in a really interesting leg lock, and Jim Ross called it a sort of an Indian death lock. Okay, that's interesting. It was a really interesting lockup he had. But eventually, I think it was Bobby Fulton rolled up Eddie Gilbert. Eddie Gilbert's arm banged as much as they worked on his arm. Eddie Gilbert's arm banged into the corner post, and of some sort, and rolled Eddie Gilbert up for the pin. And the Fantastics are once again the United States Tag Team Champions, or U.S. Tag Team Championship. And I'm going to be talking about the U.S. Tag Team title, because this tournament final tag team title match had a very interesting history. As I was just saying, that match, Fantastics versus Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert, was a tournament final for the vacant U.S. tag team titles, and the problem with the match wasn't the match itself. It's Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert were a practical throw together team. I was looking up a lot of history of how this particular tag team title, this final match came into play, and I looked up a lot of history, and I had to make a separate taping for this particular. I looked up the tournament history on the history. It was ProWrestlingHistory.com that had they have so much on show history and title history. I thank that website for this history, and also both websites, ProWrestlingHistory.com and the history of the WWE, because they brought up so many territories. This tag team title tournament final match. Date this particular whole tournament. I have to go date way back. It's not even that far. Earlier fall, September 10th, 1988, Philadelphia. The Midnight Express are the NWA World Tag Team Champions. Yes. No. I have to. Sorry, I made a mistake. It's so confusing with both titles on the Midnight Express. Bobby and Stanley are the U.S. Tag Team Champions. It's this confusing. You think I'm confused with the title histories? Wait till you hear this tag team this tournament for the U.S. Tag Team title. How confusing this turned out. Two teams abruptly leaving the company really messed up things for Jim Crockett Promotions, and there are a couple. This is a big mess up, as well as the company. Jim Crockett Promotions is historically now known as they sold the company November 2nd, 1988. But this U.S. Tag Team title tournament would take back this again, September 10th, 1988. Midnight Express, Bobby and Stan Lane, they were a U.S. Tag Team Championship. I have to correct myself. Defeat Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, the NWA World Tag Team Champions. Now, that wasn't it's now known it was not a TV taping, but a private video taping by apparently Jim Cornette. Taped the Midnight Express defeating Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson in Philadelphia. Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson abruptly left to the World Wrestling Federation for money-wise. Yes, they were out for the money, and they decided they're going to drop the titles. They asked, "When do you want us to drop the titles?" And they said Philadelphia. Okay. Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson leave abruptly. That practically ends the course and long, illustrious history of the Four Horsemen. Because now Ric Flair and Barry Windham are by themselves. Later on, there'll be another incantations, new members. I think not till 1990. I think. When Ole Anderson makes a return. But I'm not going into the history of the Horsemen with this episode. I'm focusing on the U.S. Tag Team title. With Tully Blanchard and Anderson abruptly leaving. That's the first team to leave. Now things get very interesting. There is no announcement. Now, there is a taping that the Midnight Express holding both the World Tag Team titles, NWA World Tag Team titles, and the U.S. Tag Team titles. There's a taping. Jim Cornette talks briefly about the win in Philadelphia over Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, which everybody's upset there was no long feud or plan for the Midnight Express and Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. There was no long planned angle with them. They had a couple of interviews really antagonizing each other for a kind of a long feud, but the fans missed out. They didn't go with that angle. Only a few interviews, and then they had the title match in Philadelphia. Now, apparently the Midnight Express cannot hold both titles, U.S. Tag and World Tag. And there is apparently no announcement that the titles are vacated. But Wikipedia says the title is vacated September 10th when the Midnight Express, the U.S. Tag Team titles are vacated when the Midnight Express win the titles from Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson in Philadelphia. September 10th. That's Wikipedia saying this. No announcement of the titles vacated on television. However, their team interviews beginning on November 5th. They was taped on November 2nd. November 5th, 1988, their TV tapings begin where the teams say they're interested. They're going to go after the vacant U.S. tag titles in an upcoming tournament. They're saying the team, especially the Sheepherders, The Sheepers, specifically, a couple of interviews with them, they're going to go after the vacant U.S. Tag Team titles in an upcoming tournament. The tournament is... Matches for the tournament begin on October 20th, 1988, and that's according to, I believe it's ProWrestlingHistory.com or HistoryWWE.com, either website. They covered, I think it was the HistoryWWE.com website, because it's very detailed on show history. In Saginaw, Michigan, that the beginning TV tapings for the U.S. Tag Team titles begin. A couple matches take place there. Now, the Sheepherders have an interesting situation with the U.S. Tag Team titles. Now, according to ProWrestlingHistory.com, the title history, tag team title history of the U.S. Tag Team title history, the title tournament. Now, I'm unsure. I looked up there. Apparently, there was 2 tapings. I'm not sure which one is which, but there was a match result in one of them. One match result in the U.S. Tag Team title tournament history. The Sheepers, Butch Miller, Luke Williams, defeat Eddie Gilbert, Ron Simmons, and that was a November 1st, 1988 taping. There's another taping, November 19th, 1988, but no result. Both have title history of the Sheepherders versus Eddie Gilbert, Ron Simmons, and that match is listed in the U.S. Tag Team title history. The tournament result history. Then something stunning happens. You think Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson was stunning? The end of the original Horsemen. The Sheepherders abruptly left, jumped to the WWF, apparently for the money. They comically get renamed the Bushwhackers. They went to the WWF in November of 1988, right during this ongoing U.S. Tag Team title tournament history, while they're in a tournament. But apparently the tapings, November 1st, say that match history, November 1st, say they defeated Eddie Gilbert, Ron Simmons. So they're going into the finals. But they abruptly go to apparently WWF, because I was looking up Sheepherder history 1988, and many match results say, among others, for some unknown reason, the Sheepherders are listed for more shows in November, but disappear. They do not show up. I think they left for the WWF because ProWrestlingHistory.com, their U.S. Tag Team title tournament history actually says the Sheepherders, when they defeat Eddie Gilbert and Ron Simmons in that November 88 the result, it's the the ProWrestlingHistory.com website. It says the result against Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert are reversed. So they vacate or just omit that match ever took place. So Eddie Gilbert and Ron Simmons are forwarded to the title match, the final match against the Fantastics. Now the Fantastics would defeat Steve Williams and Mike Rotundo, and there's another match. Okay, the Fantastics defeat Mike Rotundo and Steve Williams, the Varsity Club. I could not find a match result in the history WWE.com covering Jim Crockett Promotions history. I could not find a result for that. But ProWrestlingHistory.com says the Fantastics defeat Mike Rotundo and Steve Williams in a first round match. There were 2 other matches. There was a TV taping that covered 2 matches in the U.S. Tag Team title history. And I didn't really cover the results of that, but the result. This U.S. Tag Team title history is very strange. It dates back to the Midnight Express, winning the titles. They were U.S. Tag Team Champions. They win the World Tag Team titles. They had to vacate the U.S. Tag titles because no team can win 2 titles. Then the Sheepers abruptly left, and they were going into the finals. Maybe face the Fantastics. No, the Sheepers their reaching the finals are omitted. So the Fantastics face Ron Simmons, Eddie Gilbert, in I guess I don't want to use this word, rewritten, strange title history, strange tag team title history, but it comes down to the Fantastics versus Ron Simmons, Eddie Gilbert, which the Fantastics win in a 27-minute match for this opening match. This is a really strange situation. I had to discuss it. But I had discussed how the Fantastics and how Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert ended up in this first match of Clash of Champions for the vacant U.S. Tag Team titles. Second match of the night, Steve Dr. Death Williams against Italian Stallion. Now, I have to say that Italian Stallion against Steve Williams. You would think this would be for a TV taping, like for World Championship Wrestling, Worldwide Wrestling, NWA Pro Wrestling. It's he's a long time jobber, talent enhancement, and everybody knows it. Okay, when Clash of the Champions for a live show, you're supposed to be going against best of the best. And do I want to be to rate Italian Stallion? This 15-minute match, really, Jim Ross really put him over as a major, almost, I wouldn't say major star, but really put him over. Even gave him some collegiate wrestling awards or Eddie won, let alone where Steve Dr. Williams is known as at Oklahoma, a 4-time All-American football player. A 15-minute match, and now again conflicting with where the TV timekeeper has been announcing, and he was announcing first. He messed up the time. First you can hear him mess up the time, but when he gets to announce there's 10 minutes of. They've been wrestling for 10 minutes. They've been wrestling for 15 minutes. But according to ProWrestlingHistory.com, under Clash of the Champions results, it said 15 minutes 07 seconds, and the TV timekeeper is saying up to 15 minutes 15 minutes of half-hour match. So 15 minutes expired, 15 minutes to go, and the match continues a few more minutes. You could say you have to hand it to Italian Stallion for working a 15-minute match. Usually he would maybe last a couple minutes to 10 minutes, if less. But he's only known for the TV tapings for talent enhancement, a jobber. Now, with Steve Dr. S. Williams, apparently he is now turned heel, joined the Varsity Club. Even Jim Ross was so upset and disturbed with this. Point he was, Steve Williams was holding Italian Stallion down, and Steve Williams was holding the ropes for leverage, and Jim Ross said he doesn't need to do that. That's why it's fine disturbing that he's with the Varsity Club. Yes, and I in previous videos I've said that the Varsity Club being managed by Kevin Sullivan, the devilish gimmick Kevin Sullivan. And he later he gave himself the gimmick name, the Taskmaster. But yeah, what has Kevin Sullivan got to do with 2 or 3 well-known collegiate wrestling stars with Steve Williams, Mike Rotundo, and apparently now at this point they had Rick Steiner as part of the team. Rick Steiner is I think broken away now as a face turn, and they're calling, and they had a separate interview before the match started where Kevin Sullivan and Mike Rotundo are putting him down, calling him stupid and dumb. That was disturbing. I remembered as a teenager that Rick Steiner was acting really a vagueness of mental retardation, a very vagueness. He was acting like that, and it was disturbing. Where Rick Steiner was a very powerful collegiate wrestler, along with his brother Scott. I love the Steiners. Great wrestling tag team, Rick and Scott Steiner. Steve Dr. Williams, yes, I have great respect for him. You can see he's lost weight. He's wearing a collegiate wrestling outfit. But he used to be a lot muscular, bulkier when you saw him in the Mid South in UWF. Before Jim Crockett Promotions bought the UWF. But this match stretches 15 minutes. I know it's to work the TV time, but why have Steve Williams go against Italian Stallion, who's more well known as a talent enhancement jobber? You want to do a Clash of the Champions with Italian Stallion? Now I know that may sound like insulting Italian Stallion, and it's nowhere. I am not disrespecting Italian Stallion. I'm not, but he didn't belong in this show. I'm sorry. This match really didn't belong, but it was a so-so match. And the match ends with Steve Dr. Williams with his famous Oklahoma Stampede. He holds the guy up for a body slam. It's a running body slam. But I love the name Oklahoma Stampede. And Steve Dr. Williams defeats Italian Stallion. I have to add on. I wasn't going to forget about this. Jim Ross. Okay, the cameras really focus on the fans, and they usually have over the years. But at one point, the camera focuses on these three fans wearing overalls or coveralls. Then Jim Ross says something that is so shocking and disturbing. He says, "Wow, looks like they came out of the movie Deliverance." Oh my God, JR, that was rude. There were maybe overalls or country bumpkin or rednecks. I don't know. You want to insult the fans, but jeez, the movie Deliverance was a very disturbing movie as it is. And for anybody who, it's a Burt Reynolds movie that of the 1970s, and there's an infamous scene where I'm not going to describe the scene at all, but actor I think it was William Beatty. I can't remember his name. He's a well-known actor, and it's where he's assaulted by these one guy in the movie Deliverance. It's a very, very disturbing movie. But to label the fans that look like something like that, and this is Chattanooga, Tennessee, not really Deep South. It was insulting for JR to say that. I had to add that note in. It was very disturbing, and it has nothing to do with this match, but I had to add that note in. JR, what were you thinking? Next match tonight is a kind of a handicap match in a sort. Russian Bear Ivan Koloff against Paul Jones. Now, the stipulation is Ivan Koloff apparently has now turned face and no longer Paul Jones' army. I'm going to discuss that in a second. The stipulation is, I think Ivan Koloff probably in some kind of promo or interview told Ivan Koloff would tell Paul Jones in a promo or an interview that I can beat you with one hand tied behind my back, and that's what literally they did. The referee Teddy Long a nice sized rope tied Ivan Koloff's left arm, I believe it was, and took on Paul Jones. Now Paul Jones, even Jim Ross says to Bob Caudle during the match that Paul Jones, way back in the late 70s, early 80s, was a wrestler. In past years, was a championship holder, NWA World Tag Team Championship title holder. He was a wrestler in his own right. He was actually the first. Ric Flair won his first title in I think it was 1974, the Mid-Atlantic TV title in Raleigh, North Carolina. He defeated Paul Jones. Paul Jones had an illustrious career. He's never been like a successful long-time wrestler. No, but he was a wrestler in his own right. And eventually, I'm not sure how this happened. I would like to know. I wish somebody would say how Paul Jones ended up becoming a manager. Maybe he knew his time is up, but he no longer could endure the ring anymore. One thing it definitely returned was Paul Jones's hair, his full but dark. Paul Jones's hair, he had it. He lost the hair for his hair match in the blow up final match against Jimmy Valiant, Stark 86, and his hair, he wore a lot of kind of a darker black hat over the years, kind of sort of a 10-gallon hat. You would see J.R. Ewing wear at the TV show Dallas. The Texans would wear. It's not that large of a hat, but it was a black hat. But he never could see Paul Jones's hair. It was covered by a hat. Now, I was going to talk about more about Paul Jones. After Shark 86, his loss to Jimmy Vance, he quickly regrouped and took. He paid off Jimmy Vance's best friend manager. His best friend the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez, and he turned heel, and he teamed up with newcomer Rick Rude. They became the World Tag Team Champions. And then that was about December of '86, and then in May of '87, Rick Rude left the WWF. Paul Jones's army was not the army that it used to be. Paul Jones had a good set army for '85, '86, and then he had Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez. Then he had a couple others, Mighty Wilbur. Then he had the Russian Assassin. He had Ivan Koloff. His army, '86, his army was as best as it could be. At so many of Jimmy Vance's former friends. And now what he is wrestling one of his own stable, Ivan Koloff, in a kind of a handicap match. It was a so-so match. It may be because we did not get to see Paul Jones in his glory years as a professional wrestler, and we later would see him now as a manager rather than a wrestler. So we can't really, give him his just due. How he really performed as a wrestler, and Ivan Koloff, probably the promo is, "I could beat you with one arm tied behind my back." It just shows you, time has passed, and Paul Jones becoming a manager is no longer the wrestler he apparently used to be. And eventually, Paul Jones he pulled out a plastic stick. I think he used it on Jimmy Vance before in matches. He pulled out a plastic stick, but eventually Ivan Koloff got a hold of the stick and he jabbed Paul Jones with it and covered him for the pin. Then immediately come these masks, really tall guys in masks. They're called now Russian Assassins. They start beating on Ivan Koloff, still with his hand tied behind his back. And then comes in newcomer, the Junkyard Dog. Now I don't want to call him newcomer. He just arrived out of the he took some time off. He was a long time out of the WWF. He originally came out of Louisiana, Bill Watts territory. And now I know he's gonna have some matches in 1990 with the Horsemen. With Ric Flair later on, but he immediately went to help Ivan Koloff. Junkyard Dog. He had an interview. He was interviewed by Magnum TA just before this match, and now he went to help Ivan Koloff against the Russian Assassins. I think they're going to have some tag team matches. Junkyard Dog, Ivan Koloff against the Russian Assassins, but Ivan Koloff defeats Paul Jones in a hand tie behind his back match. Alright, next match tonight is Dusty Rhodes versus Road Warrior Animal. This is disqualification way, meaning it actually who would control the World Six-Man Tag Team Championship. And as Jim Ross actually announced during this match between the two, that it was going to be similar to what's coming up at Starrcade '88 between Lex Luger and World Champion Ric Flair. Disqualification wave. If Flair was disqualified, he'd lose the title. Now, even Lex Luger was being interviewed by Magnum TA a little bit earlier than this match, and something he said that the Road Warriors, they called their heel turn back in October when they defeated the World Tag Team Champions, the Midnight Express in New Orleans, and quickly took them like 5 minutes. They walked right through the champions. They kicked their ass, and his TV taping has showed. Well, the Road Warriors were returning to their monster heel image, what they originally started as back in, it was George, 83, 84, and even when they first debuted in Jim Crockett, the NWA, the AWA, the NWA, when they first started, they were a monster tag team that was going to kick everybody else's ass. They didn't team with anybody. Eventually, they would have a six-man match with Dusty Rhodes, or Baby Doll, Magnum TA, several others, Sting, several others over the years. And then they have the matches with the War Games, the Horsemen. They would team up with Dusty and Nikita Koloff. They kept teaming with so many places. And then it came to a particular match, a TV taping that happened it was a few weeks or a month before this. that Road Warriors were the 6-man title match, that the Road Warriors team was Sting, and Sting was taking the place of Dusty Rhodes. And when the Road Warriors had apparently done most of the match, Sting goes to cover the win, and the Road Warriors were pissed that Sting is going to take the glory of the pin versus all the work they did, and they go attack Sting for it. It says, where was Dusty Rhodes? And the Road Warriors returned to their heel monster image, that they didn't care to team up or help with anybody. They're back to the way they used to be. They were when they first started, even when they became popular, a lack of saying a fan favorite, baby faces, if you will. They were a team that would not go kayfabe. They wouldn't sell. That's how Ole Anderson, in its all practical sense, created the Road Warriors. When he found these two guys, you don't sell, you kick everybody. You kick everybody's ass. That's what you are. The point of you are the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom. When they first started, that's the original. They went back to what the way they originally used to be. Sometimes, if you have somebody that's started as a heel bad guy, and you try to they go from popular. Sometimes that doesn't work, and they stay heel, they stay bad guy. And sometimes when good guys, it depends on how the fans react to you, your babyface or heel, and your actions. The Road Warriors finally returned. It says they were sick, quote, of many of their promos in October and November of 1988, where they were sick of carrying Dusty Rhodes and anybody else they teamed with. They were on their own. They snack on danger and dine on death. They kicked anybody's ass. They went back to their old ways. So this match, they were the World 6-Man Tag Team Champions with Dusty Rhodes. Ironically, at the beginning of 1988, Road Warrior Animal was severely injured, and they lost the titles in Philadelphia in a non-TV taping. That was it came down. It was Ivan Koloff and the Powers of Pain, Barbarian and Warlord would beat them. Paul Ellering took the place of Road Warrior Animal in the match. It was Dusty Rhodes, Road Warrior Hawk, and Paul Ellering to defend the 6-man titles. They lost in Philadelphia. Apparently, when Paul Ellering, the result was never the result of the match. Only that the Ivan Koloff and the Powers of Pain won the 6-man titles. Powers of Pain ended up leaving the company in the summer of '88 because they didn't want to do scaffold matches with the Road Warriors. So Dusty Rhodes and Road Warriors won some particular match and regained the 6-man title. I think it was over the 3 Horsemen. Now, because Dusty Rhodes wasn't around for them, they got sick of carrying anybody. So they went back to their old ways. So they wanted Dusty Rhodes' 1/3 of the title. Now it's title belts. It used to be a trophy, a big, very big trophy. The 6-man title, similar to the World Class Championship, the World Class Von Erich territory in Texas. Their World 6-man title was a trophy. Then they have it now. They had title belts, and the Road Warriors wanted Dusty's 6-man title. Also, if Dusty had won, he would get the Road Warriors 2 of the 6-man titles. It went both ways. What went really weird in this match? It was a brawl, and the thing was the attack on Dusty Rhodes on TV and the TBS studio. It got to a point of so censored, so bloody, that eventually I think it led to Dusty Rhodes being fired in the company. After Starrcade '88, it was some point that he was fired. But before that, what went weird in this brawl, a match between Animal and Dusty Rhodes, is Dusty Rhodes gets ready to do a figure 4 leg lock on Road Warrior Animal, and all of a sudden he back slaps or arms the referee. He whacked him, and I said, "Whoa!" He really whacked the referee. The referee bumped, fell out of the ring. Then eventually, Dusty gets a figure 4. and Road Warrior Hawk comes in. The Road Warriors team up and beat Dusty down. Then Dusty but Dusty gets a plastic chair with a metal base, with a four-leg base, comes in and beats the hell out of. He takes the chair and smacks over a Road Warrior Animal's leg, breaks the chair, but the referee sees this and he disqualifies. The referee announces that he tells the announcers he's disqualifying Dusty Rhodes for use of a chair. I'm surprised he didn't disqualify Dusty for back slap and back slap. That was a hell of a back arm slap by Dusty. Jeez. But Dusty Rhodes is disqualified. The Road Warriors have won Dusty's 1/3 of the 6-man titles. And when Sting comes in and helps Dusty with his Road Warrior beatdown, it's the lead up to Sting and Dusty Rhodes will take on the Road Warriors with the World Tag Team titles at Starrcade 88. Alright, the next match tonight and the last match, the main event, is the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette, Bobby Eaton, and Stan Lane versus Horsemen, Barry Windham, and Ric Flair. And this was a tremendous tag team match. Wow, it went a while, and they beat the living hell out of each other. Jim Cornette, he went on almost a 5-minute rant after the match was over, and the one thing he said, that even when they took on they did the interview angles with Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, Jim Cornette told J.J. Dillon, let's let them go and see what happens. The same thing with Ric Flair and Barry Windham. This was a tremendous tag team match. I said this when I reviewed the other Clash of Champions. The main event of these clashes, they've done a great job. It's tremendous wrestling. Tremendous tag team wrestling talent. Holy cow. Tremendous match. Great match. I couldn't do it justice reviewing. You definitely have to watch this match. It is a great tag team match. The thing is, again, when they started doing interviews that the Midnight Express were the U.S. Tag Team Champions and Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson were the World Tag Team Champions, you got to see who's the better team. They started doing the interviews. It was actually heel team and heel team. And many promotions, many companies did not ever want to do this. Baby faces versus baby faces. Heels versus heels. Let them go and see what happens. Jim Cornette challenged J.J. Dillon to that very statement. And what happened in September 10th, 1988? They defeated Tully and Arn to take the World Tag Team titles. Now, and even Cornette said, we got rid of one half of the horse and now we got 2 more to go. Jim Cornette was sweating to death because after the ending of this match, which I'm gonna explain in a minute. He went on a long rant. It was to finish off TV time, but Cornette really explained the whole situation. He really did, and even brought on the upcoming feud with Paulie Dangerously. Would be Paul Heyman in years to come. Paulie Dangerously's original Midnight Express. He's going to be feuding with Dennis Condrey returns, teaming with Randy Rose. And when that first started, he said, "Where was Dennis Condrey this whole time?" Now, it's amazing to see more that the Midnight Express. It was Jim Ross that said Jim Cornette. He grew up a little. He grew up some. It's amazing to see heels that have been around, that whether it's tag team or single, to see heels that have been a bad guy such a long time and suddenly abruptly become fan favorites, baby faces. It's amazing how that happens. Really amazing. I couldn't explain this match. One of the most tremendous tag team matches. Cornette said, let them go and see what happens. Great match. Now, the ending comes... Bobby Eaton does the Alabama Jam on Barry Windham, lands it. Then comes... J.J. Dillon, he knew that they're gonna lose the match. J.J. Dillon tries to get into the ring. Cornette with his tennis racket, he goes to attack J.J. Dillon, manager against manager. But apparently, I didn't see it. Apparently, J.J. Dillon threw Ric Flair his shoe. Dillon took his shoe off, threw it to Ric Flair. Ric Flair waxed Bobby Eaton, Barry Windham, yeah, Barry Windham and Ric Flair had Barry Windham cover Bobby Eaton, and they covered and got the 3 count. And the Horseman, oh my God, Cornette was so upset and pissed off at this. He was sweating to death. I said he went on a 5-minute rant. You know, and even Jim Ross said this was a travesty of justice. That's another version of saying Gorilla Monsoon's a miscarriage of justice. That the Horsemen beat the Midnight Express. It's amazing to see the Midnight Express babyfaces, fan favorites. It's truly amazing. But again, this match, you have to watch it. Great, tremendous tag team action. But the Horsemen prevailed with it, vague outside interference. I just love Bobby Eaton when it comes off the top rope, that leg drop off the top rope, an Alabama Jam. I swear, Bobby Eaton's leg drop from the top rope, Hulk Hogan, you ain't got nothing on Bobby Eaton's leg drop. It's fantastic. I love the Alabama Jam leg drop. But unfortunately, the Horsemen prevailed. So that was my review of Clash of the Champions 4, December 7th, 1988, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, Seasons Beatings, and I think I'll be reviewing Starrcade 88 next.